Tell us a little bit about yourself, Zach. Who is Zach McVicker, and what's your story?
I'm a father of 4 amazing children and a husband to an amazing wife that's actually allowed me to accomplish what I have. But honestly, I can say Zach McVicker is someone who has definitely experienced challenge and struggle. My wife and I had our son Kane 2 months after I graduated high school. She was still a junior in high school. That was probably the most difficult time that I've went through, but it's also probably my greatest accomplishment. I was faced with life early, and during that time, I really learned empathy and the value of relationships. I learned it was okay to not only ask questions, but ask for help. And I really kind of brought that into my career as well. I learned that vulnerability was not a sign of weakness, but honestly a position of strength. You have to learn it before you know it. And the only person you're hurting when you do not speak up is yourself. That's what I learned, and that's who I am. But by asking questions and always being transparent with people wanted to actually reciprocate that with me and ask me my opinion. People valued that I wanted to know more about them than I wanted them to know more about me. So because of that and what I learned about people and the value of people, because I needed the help that I did, what I learned legitimately became a people studier. And I started noticing this type of communication that also worked with my customers that I dealt with daily. I went through so many different training programs that, sporadically, nothing ever was consistent, but I noticed they always wanted to teach tactics and never train communication and connecting with a customer. I connect with people. I love people and I value people. The human element that was missing in every single program that I went through, that's who I am today, and that's what I try to bring. As a child, I was a troublemaker. I'll tell you that. I learned from my mother that all of my decisions that we affect people in one way or another. She taught me that the more people that you care about and make happy, the greater chance that you have waking up every single day, having someone try to actually do the same thing for you. My work relationships were important to me. My customer relationships were important to me. The aha moment for me when I realized both sides could actually win. And what I mean is customers paid more because they wanted to do business with me, because they liked me. Employees followed me throughout my entire career because they knew the career was just as important to me as it was to them. Their career was just as important to me as it was to them. My hope for everyone is honestly to learn the worth of developing people so you see the value it brings to you, not only you professionally, but also personally, because there's no amount of money that can pay for that. As I got older and wiser, I was able to see these patterns more clear than ever before, and that is the true testament of who Zach McVicker is today. I always empowered my people. I cared enough to learn about them, and I led or did business with honesty and integrity. The word I would use to describe who I am is grateful, because I've got a lot to be grateful for, but I could not have accomplished what I have without the people that I have around me. And so Zach McVicker cares about people, and I'll do anything for them.
So, Zach, I know you've taken many automotive dealerships from the brink of failure or underperforming to top in both state and country. What were the challenges or issues you encountered across those dealerships that led them down that path, which ultimately brought you there?
First, let me say that I have learned it is very easy to pick things apart from the outside, but until you've actually truly experienced what it all involved in leading a very large organization, I always encourage everyone to learn more before judging a situation. Those people who have maybe been struggling were people I actually learned the most from in my career. Those people and companies helped me just as much, if not more, than I actually helped them. Look, the auto industry has changed in many ways over the last decade, and the majority are still trying to get it figured out. As a whole, the industry has unfortunately created a huge problem with their customers. I saw a statistic that actually showed over 60% of customers think that they're getting lied to or taken advantage of when actually purchasing a car. 81% of consumers hate something about the car buying experience altogether. Now, jump to the other side of that transaction, right? Our industry has a major problem with the turnover in salespeople. Over 70% turnover every single year. And I saw a statistic the other day actually said over 80%. That is not a coincidence. To answer your question, the most costly and detrimental opportunities, because I don't look at anything as a problem, where salespeople turnover and the management's ability to actually lead, train, and coach. GMs and managers are actually put in a very tough, high-pressure position to perform. Those positions are typically compensated well, and owners should expect a lot, but I believe we need to better equip them to be successful. I found these dealerships spent so much money on marketing, but very little on development of their people. Marketing is important, but if all we're doing is bringing potential customers to a salesperson who hasn't been shown the successful way, all we're doing is destroying our brand and creating more issues for ourselves, like upset customers, missed opportunities, and uninspired associates that affect our culture because they're failing. There was a major lack of valuing people, and I mean all people, the customers, the new hires, the managers, everyone. I want to help our industry leaders actually see the real problem. I want them to know they can fix it, but they must acknowledge it and take action to fix it. We know the top 20% of sales pros are going to figure it out, and they're going to be successful because of who they are. Like myself and GMs today, we did not get the proper training or guidance. We were just good at selling cars. The managers today are in a completely different world. The customer is different. The employee is different. Now, they're spread thinner than ever before. They're promoted out of desperation to fill a seat, and they were never shown how to actually lead people. Just because a manager was once a great salesperson does not mean they'll actually be able to teach others how to be great salespeople as well. Managers don't have the time that we used to in our past, or they don't have the know-how to properly train their new salespeople. I saw this pattern in managers where they never learned how to deliver an effective training session to sales pros or understood the significance of establishing good habits in the very beginning when we hired someone. I go back to my first statement on this topic when I told you these people were capable and unbelievably valuable. They just needed the structure and the guidance to be successful. Those managers needed successful salespeople to achieve the goals that are put in front of them. The salesperson affects almost every other department in the dealership. You can't sell finance products before you sell a car. You do not have a vehicle to service until the salesperson captures the customer. Dealerships want to turn their inventory and capture trade-ins, so we get the reconditioning dollars that drive money to the bottom line, but who controls that? Multiple people, but it starts with the salesperson. Our people want to be held accountable, but when they work in an environment where learning and being challenged is rare, being able to hold people accountable effectively becomes almost impossible. It's a brutal cycle, but everything good and bad stems from the salespeople.
Zach, in your opinion, what are the key elements that every dealership has to have in order to be successful?
So I start with the people first. I explained in my prior answer the most important challenges to fix because they affected everything in the dealership. Through the pandemic, dealers experienced inventory issues like they have never had before. Manufacturers stopped building vehicles and dealers were concerned. I noticed Carvana became a major part of dealers' concern and conversations because they got dealers to list their inventory, right? Take all the marketing power, and it resulted in a lost market share for the dealers. I have heard consumers stop buying vehicles because they lost their job or they were being cautious. I have taken over stores where the used inventory was completely underwater. I can go on and on with issues I've experienced over my career, and like the issues I described above that are the current problems, right, that dealers are facing today, but every one of those instances are symptoms. They're not the disease. You asked me what are the necessary key elements to make a dealership successful. The best way to answer your question is to try and categorize key goals to help leaders truly attack the opportunities they have in front of them. First, we have to create a leadership environment of transparency, communication, and appreciation through vulnerability. The first thing I would do is get beside your people and let them know. You want their feedback. I noticed asking for feedback was difficult for some people. I don't know why, but they were concerned with potentially being wrong and worried about being embarrassed. As I have said, vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. If you never ask for help or feedback on how you can get better as a leader, how can we expect our people to ask for help, take advice, or feel that they can get better? The second thing we must do to get the root of the disease is establish core values of taking care of the customer and delivering a quality product, no exceptions. We have to stand behind them. It takes a long time to build a brand, but a brand can be destroyed extremely fast. The internet has changed the game. Run the business by making decisions that have people in mind, both employee and customer. I realized over my career and having the privilege to work with thousands of employees that managers cannot make employees do anything. They can't. They have to believe in what the company stands for and buy into the leaders of the store. That's why it's so important for leaders to lead by example, be consistent, and focus on consistently developing our people. Leading by fear might work, but it will be for a very short period of time, and you'll find yourself in a repeated pattern of always looking to fill seats. That's why we have a high turnover as an industry. Plus, you will continue being stressed, frustrated, asking yourself why it is that something you love so much turn into something that you think about leaving every single day. It's okay to be wrong. And when your people see that you have humility and are willing to change for the better, now they care so much more about what you think and are willing to put the effort in to get better themselves. When you get people behind you, establish the core values, you can move to the third category. Eliminate the inefficiencies through training, collaboration, and effective direction. Don't try to fix everything at once, though. The greatest mentor I've ever had the privilege to work with, he actually introduced me to the financial statement early in my career. Teach your people something new while benefiting from the progression. When I say eliminate inefficiencies, it means finding the areas we want to improve on as a team and dissect it together. Train, collaborate, and give effective direction. The greatest leaders find what strengths their people have and then putting them in the right areas and down the right path where the entire team benefits because they handle the areas that they are great at. The areas that managers are weak in needs to be filled in the next spot by the team members, right? Because that is where their strengths are. When the entire team is working towards the same common goal, everyone is included, accomplishing that goal, and you as the leader have placed them in the right members in the right spots, in the right areas, right? That's where greatness is formed. The fourth area would be so much more effective if you accomplish the first three. A successful dealership establishes clear expectations and has the ability to hold the team accountable. You've heard the saying, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. When we establish very clear expectations to our people, and they know it's coming from a good place, when you go to hold them accountable, they are now tougher on themselves because they know that you just want to make them better. They want to be a part of the common goal. Setting expectations when hiring someone new is one of the quickest changes you can make to have effective, positive results. If you set expectations from the very beginning, it diminishes the chance for fault. You don't spend so much extra time correcting actions because you establish expectations. They knew it from the beginning. You will prevent upset customers, upset coworkers, on top of having a much more effective and lucrative addition to the team. I learned when I set expectations in the beginning, holding people accountable was so much easier when the team was behind me and made tough conversations progressive conversations. Time, productivity, and consistency is what you will accomplish when you do this. It'll be worth it. Now, I know I've talked for a while, so I apologize. I do that a lot, but I only have one more. I just truly want to be an advocate to the leaders in our industry and be a part of positive change. Everything I've talked about was learned through struggle, failure, and adversity. It's not easy. I genuinely just want to try and prevent that for them and help any way I can. The last one is probably the hardest one to accomplish for most. We've all heard hero to zero in the auto industry. We have so many short-sighted goals, and a lot of the leaders know that they have these same issues. The defining moment, though, that will separate the leaders listening are the ones that will tell you they know their issues are, right? What those issues are and what they're going to do are the leaders that finally pull themselves from this repeating cycle and don't waste any time talking about it. They just go and do it. Ideas are great, but an idea without an action plan is just a wish. Dealers can fix these issues they have, but it's going to be the last thing that it will leave you with. It's going to take long-term commitment. We have to stop hiring out of desperation and stop throwing our people to the wolves. They're not like us. We as leaders owe it to ourselves and our people to develop for the long-term success, not for short-term gain. Sustainability or short-term victory. The greatest accomplishments are the hardest to get to, but they are so worth it once you're there. If you commit to that, I promise you, it'll be worth it. Thank you.